Centuries ago, amidst the fog of revolution and the thirst for independence, our founding fathers found solace in the warm embrace of coffee houses. These establishments were not just places for a hot brew. They became crucibles of free speech, where groundbreaking ideas were brewed, stirred, and served. In those hallowed halls, notions of democracy, liberty, and justice were not just idle chatter. They were debated with passion, shaped with precision, and forged into foundations of our great nation. Today, as we find ourselves amidst a whirlwind of social change, political divides, and pressing challenges, we need to rekindle that spirit. In these spaces, we can confront the most consequential social issues of our time, not as adversaries, but as allies in the quest for understanding and solutions. To the coffee houses willing to join this mission, let your doors be wide open, your atmosphere inviting, and your tables a meeting ground for diverse voices. In the spirit of unity, dialogue, and progress, let's come together and meet on the Coffeehouse Tour. Here's to the future brewed in the past. Hello everyone, I'm J.R. Larson, and today we are at Dreamshot Films in Fairfax, Virginia, in the shadows of Washington, D.C. The Coffeehouse Tour is a community conversation. Our objective is to get people to talk together about the most consequential social issues our country faces today and consider bold solutions. These are conversations powered by citizens of all ages, social and economic statuses, different backgrounds and beliefs. Our goal is to bring you the constant variety of social topics and opinions in a timely and unbiased manner. On our program today, we'll explore the issue of border security. Border security is a multifaceted issue that intersects with national security, immigration policy, human rights, and international relations. The top social questions related to border security often focus on balancing security measures with humanitarian concerns, managing migration flows, and the impact of border security on bilateral and multilateral relationships. Today, we're going to unpack this issue into three discussions. How can countries balance border security with humanitarian obligations? What strategies can effectively manage migration flows while ensuring border security? And what is the impact of border security policies on international relations and cooperation? Let's meet today's panel. Please welcome back to my left, Brian Grohosky. Brian is a husband and a father of two, a former Marine, electrical engineer, home renovator, pilot, and news commentator. Again, he's a news guy. Brian is a recent FBI special agent retiree where he specialized in civil rights and public corruption investigations. He's now enjoying his new life in the performing arts world, creating fun and interesting content wherever he can. Please welcome back Shalon Lozelle. Shalon is a proud mother of three. She's a registered nurse, has been a registered nurse for 23 years. She holds associate and bachelor's degrees in nursing, as well as a master's degree in business administration. Shalon is an actor, model, published writer, YouTube podcaster, and yes, a veteran guest commentator on the Coffeehouse Tour. Please welcome back Jason Thompson. Jason is an actor with over 20 years experience, as well as a professional sales training consultant for the health and fitness industry. He's an advocate for unfiltered and independent thinking, and we are looking forward to your points of view today, Jason. All right, let's jump into our discussion with our first topic. How can countries balance border security with humanitarian obligations? And we'll start with Brian.
Well, this one, thankfully, is an easy one. All we need to do is enforce the laws that are on the books. It sounds nice and simple. We have immigration laws, we have criminal laws, we have civil laws, and there are obligations for refugees as well. For me, the politicians on both sides love this issue because it's so divisive, and the trick is they're always arguing different points. So on one hand, you've got the Republicans arguing that we need to close the border to keep the drugs and the terrorists out, and it's okay with them to stop families from coming over as well. On the Democrat side, they rather open the borders and let the families come across, knowing that it also opens the floodgates for the drugs and possible terrorists and so forth. And so they're really arguing about two different things. Nobody wants to see families separated. Nobody wants to hurt families or small kids. Nobody wants terrorists or drugs in the country. But both sides will demify the other side for allowing it all in or blocking all of it. And there's no gray area for them. The good news is if we just enforce the laws that are on the books, we'd be fine. Now, when it comes to refugees, that was a little bit of a curveball for me. I had to do a little reading myself, so I looked up the convention from the UN that all countries agreed to. And legitimate refugees, they have certain rights, which is absolutely true. And the countries on board, including the United States, have to honor those obligations. The caveat to that, they have to respect the laws of the host country that they are in. So coming across the border illegally, that's not a crime in and of itself. But once they're here, they have to respect our laws. And unfortunately, I think I'm running out of time on that.
Shalon, what do you think?
Yes, so excuse me, I'll touch on a little bit of what Ryan mentioned. We do have to distinguish between those that are entering the United States legally versus illegally. The United States does have an obligation with the UN 1951 Convention. Although the U.S. was not an original signatory on that agreement, we do have a domestic law that was put in place in 1980 as included in the Refugee Act of 1980. So the United States does have an obligation to house and safely and bring in refugees. I think we need to be realistic in what the United States has the capability as well as the capacity to do when it comes to refugees and immigrants. Also, we should not take in every person that is crossing illegally. We should not, and we cannot take every refugee as well, right? So I think we need to be realistic in those expectations. Creating a system that is in collusion with federal, state, and local authorities. If we do that, right now, it's very fractured and there's no consistent process that these refugees or these people are going through. So if we do that, I think that we would create a more succinct process that would spread the wealth amongst the states so that those states that are bordering or have direct borders to the South in particular are not bearing the brunt of the majority of the immigrants coming into the United States.
Jason, how can countries balance border security with humanitarian obligations?
Man, put me on the spot here. Well, I think it's common sense. A lot of what we're talking about is common sense. It's like, look, there's a difference between, hey, let's all be very, very compassionate towards everything, but you can also be stupid and gullible, as well. And there's a balance to be struck for sure. We do have legal obligations, and there are humanitarian obligations that we need to meet. At the same time, there needs to be a vetting system. Yes, we are all descendants of immigrants. Yes, but legal immigrants. And we do it the right way. And like Brian said, there's already laws on the book to take care of all this. It's not really that complicated. Just enforce them. So the fact that we're not enforcing them leads me to believe that this is on purpose, but that's another topic for another day. Historically, the United States has been probably the most welcoming country. I think the best examples of the consequences we're talking about with different nations might be Poland right now. Look what happened in Europe. Poland has a history of being invaded where they have to, their people, their children have to be taught their history. It's not like us where we're surrounded by friends and two oceans. They are surrounded by people that historically have not been kind to them. And so they have to not be so compassionate. They have to be realistic. And so what they do is they say, no, we'll take you, the Ukrainian refugees, but we're going to leave people who don't really like our culture out. And, they took a lot of flack for that. The president took a lot of flack. But at the end of the day, look at the consequences. A lot of these other European countries are suffering. They are not. They're doing very well. And so we have to look at the consequences. The consequence of this is not compassionate, guys. The consequences of fentanyl and sex trafficking, human trafficking, those are not compassionate consequences.
So
Lack of a better
when we
term.
open the faucet, then more water and more refugees just keep on coming. It's kind of the thing. Yeah, correct. And what do you guys think?
Sort of build off of what Shalom was saying is we're not the only game in town. People want to come to the United States, but any country can accept refugees. They don't have to come here. And tragically, they're all coming here. They're passing by countries that also take refugees, but they don't want to stay there. They want to come to the United States, and the system is being woefully abused, and it's got to stop. But that comes by enforcing the laws that we have, and the political will to do it it's unfortunately being disgustingly ignored.
Why do you think that is?
It's political expedience. It gains them votes. It gains them supporters. It gains them funding and action committees that support the migration that's happening. It's all politics. It's money and politics. It's sad.
We're going to take a short break. And when we do come back, we'll take a look at what strategies can effectively manage migration flows while ensuring border security. We'll be right back. And we're back. In this block, we're going to share opinions on what strategies can effectively manage migration flows while ensuring border security. Shalon, you're up.
Thank you. I think we need to take a practical approach to this. Currently, well, as of 2023, there are 1.3 million pending refugee applications in the United States. And the average length of time that it takes for a refugee to navigate the entire process is over 4 years. So, obviously what we have currently in place is not working. I feel like I mentioned it on the last question, but I feel like if we have a harmonized system that is working in collusion with the state, federal government, and the local authorities, if we create a program like that, then, it will spread the wealth. And for instance, if we take, we have 50 states, I think all states should be required to participate because the United States has to participate. So the states should have to participate, not those that are directly affected. I think if they all are required to participate, then, say we give 50 calendar days for that transition to keep rolling through and rotating. A state would have at least 3 or 4 months before they would have to take in new intakes. So creating a system like that, I think, really would be beneficial. And the U.S. can fund it. I'm sorry, I'm tired of hearing we can't do it. This is the United States. We can do whatever we want. And also thinking outside of the box, I feel like with our local or larger law schools, having a practicum for those students, working under a lawyer, and making them work through some of these refugee applications. So I think having those two would help.
Resources. Yeah. Interesting. Jason, what do you think?
I think the shift needs to go from what's good for people who aren't Americans to what's good for the actual Americans. So that paradigm shift needs to take place. If someone's watching me take a shower and then close the door, it's common sense, right? So, I don't think the border wall was so controversial. I don't see anything controversial about it myself. It's one of many strategies you implement. Just allow you the time to vet people properly. It's not, it's not racist. It's, hey, this is a problem. How do we solve it? That's one of the strategies. I think, decide on how many immigrants our system can take at a given time. Tax-wise, what can the economy handle, and then they wouldn't burden the average American citizen. Then you say, out of those people that are left, who can contribute the most, who needs it the most, versus families versus an individual just trying to sneak over. And so you have to base it off of economic and workforce needs, their skill level, and let's decide on a common number. Like Brian was saying in the last segment. All these things are in place, infrastructure's in place, but the enforcement seems to be the problem. I also think that maybe we incentivize citizenship a little differently. Maybe we I don't know, mandatory military service gets you in the front of the line. Maybe more taxes for a certain period of time that goes towards our citizens. And then stop politicizing it. This isn't a partisan thing. This is an American thing. It's not a left or a right thing. You're not compassionate if you allow it to happen, and vice versa. So allocate resources. We seem to print money for everything else. Well, then why can't we have money to seal our borders and vet people properly so it's legal and we give people a fair shake so it's balanced? I think that's a balanced approach. And by the way, it's not compassionate, allowing criminals to come over, fentanyl to come over the borders, human sex trafficking. None of that is compassionate, guys. We have to get that through our heads. The consequence of that, I've said it last segment, I'll say it again.
Brian, what strategies do you think can effectively manage migration flows while ensuring border security?
Well, I have to go with my same answer from last segment, which is enforce the laws on the books. So I get it. I think in general there's two approaches. We need to disincentivize coming here in the first place by holding people accountable. I don't often agree with what Vice President Harris does, but I do agree with the point that we need to find out the basic causes why people are fleeing their own homeland. I mean, I can't imagine anybody in our country going, I hate it here, I got to go, it's too dangerous. That's the argument they're making for all these countries that they're fleeing from, is they're overrun with drug lords, the poverty is unbearable, there's famine, there's all these things. So, yeah, I think the United States has a stake in finding the fundamental reasons why these people are leaving, which is what Vice President Harris has said she's been tasked to do. I think that's fantastic. Do that. But at the same time, that doesn't mean you turn a blind eye to what happens at our own border, with our own citizens, with our own infrastructure, with all of our people. To your point about sending people around robin around the country, that seems to be what Governor Abbott is doing in Texas. He's busing people to other parts of the country, and they hate him for it. But I mean, they're all sanctuary cities. They're all for these immigrants and families, and we're compassionate, except when it's on their doorstep. So there's a lot of hypocrisy there. I think all of these things could be solved by enforcing the laws that we have on the books, and then finding out the reasons that they're coming to America in the first place, and try to maybe it's a national security interest to help these countries that are flailing to get them on their feet. That's a huge interest for us.
Isn't it interesting that the sanctuary cities happen to be in the bluest of states? That's the whole point, right? And then back to you guys.
I think so. I think it's very important to determine why they are coming over to the United States, and verification, for sure.
We've all seen those videos online where people that are flooding across the borders aren't just families, right? They're single-age military, and maybe that's just a coincidence, but maybe it's not. And to your point, maybe it is a very small percentage of people that might do us harm, but that small percentage can do a lot of damage. And, we don't really know why they're here. And we would know if we just enforce the laws.
So y'all have some very deeply founded ideas on this topic. No surprises. Now, after we do come back from break, we'll hear what our panelists say is the impact of border security policies on international relations and cooperation. We'll be right back. And we're back. In our final block, we look at border security from a different angle. What is the impact of border security policies on international relations and cooperation? And on this one, we're going to start off with Jason.
Thanks a lot, Taylor.
What do you think?
This is my toughest one, sure. It obviously creates tension. We take United States and Mexico. That's the obvious one because it's so close to home. They have an obligation to help us secure our borders as well. It's not one-sided, and it does create tension. The lack of effort in securing the border, to me, it makes it seem like it's almost purposeful. And I think that one thing I wanted to touch on the most was people don't realize the impact on society. So what makes a culture? I mean, the reason why people come here is because we have a certain culture that facilitates freedom, ideally, facilitates business, facilitates families coming here, being safe, starting a family, starting a business, and being successful, chase your dreams, etc. If you bring people in who don't want to assimilate with those same values, whether it's Europe, whether it's here, you're fundamentally changing the culture. And then the consequence of that are maybe it doesn't work as well. Now they don't want to come here anymore. So there's a reason why the same sports teams win every year. There's a reason why the same businesses thrive every year. It's because the culture, the collective values that everyone agrees upon, and then the execution of those values. And so if you bring someone in from another company, comes in, doesn't share those values, you therefore disrupt it, maybe it doesn't work as well. It's nothing against that person, but they don't share the same values. So I think the consequence of that creates a lot of tension. And I think that's what people say in Poland. Some people in the United States are afraid of it. It's not about, we don't want you. It's about, are you willing to join, to assimilate to our culture? Do you value that? Do you want to be an American, or do you want to be whatever you were before you came here, and then you try to turn us into that, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah. So I look at this more globally. Every time the United States stumbles, our adversaries point to us and say, see, democracy doesn't work, capitalism doesn't work. And when it comes to the border issue, we start to lose credibility in South America and in Africa. And I can tell you with certainty that China is flooding all of these nations in South Africa and in Africa, South America and in Africa, with money, with cheap goods, and they are eating our lunch when it comes to influence, because they are trying to fundamentally change the global economy. And so in the big picture, our national security is greatly affected by our border policies, because the perception around the world is we're losing control, we're losing the greatness that was the United States, that beacon on the hill and all that we were this great country. We're now looking weak. We're looking terrible because we're not controlling our borders. It's a perception issue, and it tremendously affects how leaders in other countries go, well, the United States isn't what it used to be. So I have great concerns about that. I think it's tragic what's happened to our appearance. So sum all that up, our failures with our border policy and law enforcement is just leading to a decline in the United States being able to influence in a positive way all of these nations around the world, not just South America and Africa, but Europe and to some extent Asia. But China is eating our lunch. It's got to stop.
Shalon. I'll bite my tongue. Well, wait.
Yes. So yes, we do have an issue with the numbers of refugees, immigrants coming to our country, but I think right now our main focus should be on Mexico. And, there's got to be some accountability in this, right? So I feel like we need to lean on the UN to facilitate meetings with, the president of Mexico, whatever country is sending people over here. I feel like we need to have our leadership meet and discuss and have that accountability. Why are so many of your people coming to my country? That kind of thing. But also I feel it's listed. The mission of the UN is not to make those determinations. The mission of the UN is to make sure that the refugees have a safe haven and that they seek that safely. And so I feel like it needs to be the other way around. Like, we need to determine why we are experiencing an influx of so many people. Also, 2023, 39% of the total immigrants that came to the United States, of those, 39% of those refugees were Mexicans looking for work. So, cannot say that we do not have an issue with Mexico. Their president is blaming it on Venezuelans that are coming through. But, we have a lot of Mexican people that are coming over looking for work illegally, too. And then, it is causing a detrimental strain on all of our resources. And we just cannot handle the influx of that many people coming to the United States.
And it's go back time. Is that payback? No, it's go back time.
Well, you had to bite your tongue on something, so I'd like to hear what that was.
All right.
So it goes to this circle that strong men make for good times wait for weak men wait for bad times. And that's where we're at right now. There's a lot of well-intentioned people that are soft on so many policies and laws.
That's very discouraging when you see how illegal immigrants seem to take priority on resources over our own veterans or our own communities. It's very discouraging.
And we have to take a stand. The United States was a powerhouse. We can still be a powerhouse. We just have to take a stand.
There's another, to me, the frustrating part about all these politicians is they love the cheap stuff that we get from China. And domestically, we're all about green energy and green this and green that. They turn a blind eye to China destroying the environment.
Because maybe they're getting money from them.
Yeah.
Man, that was great discussion. Good points. And I could barely resist. No, it's good stuff. Really good stuff. Thank you very much, each and every one of you, for the time that you put in and getting ready for this show and being so willing to express your opinions as freely as you have. That's the name of this game. And of course, thank you to those that took their time to watch this program as we thoughtfully explore the issues that shape our nation and our values. Remember, it's through respectful dialogue just like this and a steadfast commitment to our principles that we can navigate the complexities of our times. Stay tuned. Future programs will tackle more consequential social issues, including partisan cooperation, religious freedom, homelessness, and education. Goodbye for now from the Coffeehouse, where every conversation is a step towards a brighter, more grounded tomorrow.
The Coffeehouse tour has been sponsored by Jiffy Images, residential and commercial real estate photography, and Odyssey America Media. For a printed transcript of the Coffeehouse tour, send $1 and a self-addressed envelope to Dreamshot Films, 4580 Fair Valley Drive, Fairfax, Virginia 22033.